I raised them for 20 years, braided their hair, packed their lunches, called them my little girls. They call me Dad. I thought I was. Turns out, I wasn't. And this is the story of how I found out. They say time flies when you're happy. If that's true, then the past 20 years must have been a blur for me, because I barely remember the days. They were too full of joy to keep track of. I met Laura during my last year of college. She was studying child psychology. I was finishing my degree in business. She had this way of talking with her hands and smiling with her whole face. She made me feel like I could be someone better just by standing next to her. We got married 6 months after graduation. It felt fast, but when you know, you know. 2 years into our marriage, she handed me a small white box at the breakfast table. Inside was a pregnancy test, positive. I remember dropping my fork. We laughed. We cried. We celebrated with pancakes. That morning, I promised I would give everything I had to be a good father. It wasn't just something I said to sound noble. I meant it in my bones. When Mia was born, I held her so close I was afraid I'd crush her. She had this quiet way of blinking up at me like she already knew me. As the nurses wheeled Laura out of the delivery room, I remember whispering to my daughter, "I'm your dad, and I'm never leaving." 3 years later came Ella, firecracker from the start. Where Mia was calm and observant, Ella was loud and curious. She used to tug at my pant leg whenever she wanted a piggyback ride, which was always. My knees started cracking before I hit 30. Our house wasn't big, but it was filled with laughter. Laura decorated it with warm lights and mismatched picture frames. I built bunk beds for the girls myself, even though the first version collapsed under its own weight. We had a golden retriever named Max who shed so much fur that our couch permanently wore a fuzzy sweater. Sunday mornings were pancake days. Always. I made smiley faces out of bananas and blueberries, and the girls used to fight over who got the one with the chocolate chip eyes. I took them to school every morning, did their hair, because Laura said I was better at braids. I had no idea how to braid at first. Watched hours of YouTube tutorials until I got it right. Ella liked hers with 2 colorful bands on the ends. Mia preferred a simple ponytail with 1 pink scrunchie. Every day, they looked at me with wide eyes and trust. Every day, I kissed their foreheads and told them they were strong, smart, and loved. We built snowmen in the winter, hunted fireflies in the summer. I read them bedtime stories with silly voices and made up songs when I forgot the lyrics. They believed I was the smartest man alive. Sometimes when I couldn't sleep, I'd sneak into their room just to watch them breathe, overwhelmed by how much I loved these 2 tiny people. Laura went back to work after Ella turned 5. I adjusted my shifts at the cafe to be home when the girls needed me. The cafe was my dream, a cozy little corner shop with yellow walls and the smell of fresh cinnamon rolls. It never made me rich, but it paid the bills and let me be present. The girls grew up playing behind the counter, drawing on napkins, and occasionally sneaking cookies when they thought I wasn't looking. The years went fast. First day of kindergarten, first scraped knees, dance recitals, school plays. Mia played Juliet in her 8th grade drama class. I sat in the front row with tears in my eyes, even though her Romeo had 2 left feet. Ella won her 4th grade science fair with a baking soda volcano. I helped her paint the cardboard mountain while she bossed me around like a tiny general. There were tough days, too. Chicken pox, fevers, fights over screen time. The teenage years hit like a storm. Slamming doors, cold shoulders, tear-streaked faces over boys, and school drama. Still, even in those moments, I never stopped loving them with everything I had. I thought we were the perfect family, not in the Instagram perfect way, but in the way that mattered. Real, messy, full of heart. Friends and neighbors would often tell me how lucky I was, how obvious it was that my daughters adored me. I believed it too, because how could they not be mine? Every birthday, they hugged me and said, "You're the best dad in the world." And I truly believed I was. I never saw the cracks. Not until it was too late. Not until everything I believed about my family, about myself, began to crumble. But back then, in those golden years, I had no reason to doubt. No reason to question. Just a heart full of love. And two little girls who call me Dad. And I would have gone to the ends of the earth for them. I still would. Life had a rhythm to it. Weekdays were filled with laughter, with hurried school drop-offs, and the smell of fresh bread in the cafe by 6 a.m. sharp. Weekends were slower. Pancakes in the morning. Cartoons on low volume. The girls curled up under my arms. I didn't just raise them. I grew up with them. I remember when Emily lost her first tooth. She was terrified it would hurt, tears welling in those big brown eyes. I knelt beside her bed, told her how the tooth fairy would trade it for a gold coin if she was brave enough. The next morning, her smile lit up the entire house, and so did mine. I still have that little tooth. It's in a small wooden box in my desk drawer, labeled in shaky handwriting. M's first. Sophie, the younger one, was always the adventurous spirit. She once tried to climb the apricot tree behind the cafe just to see the neighborhood from above. She came down with scraped knee and a grin of pure triumph. I cleaned her wound, kissed her forehead, and told her she was unstoppable. She believed me. Their mother, Claire, always said I spoiled them. Maybe I did, but I had waited my whole life for something to feel this right. It wasn't just the cafe. It was the way the girls called me Daddy in sleepy voices, the way Claire rested her head on my chest after long days, whispering, I couldn't have asked for a better father for our girls. Our girls. That phrase meant everything to me. But looking back now, certain moments glow with a different light. Things I brushed off suddenly feel heavy with meaning. It started small. A school health form came back and signed. Claire had always handled those, but this one ended up on my desk. Both parents' medical history. It read, I scanned the paper. My own family's data listed heart conditions, allergies, nothing major. But I paused when I saw the girls' blood types. Emily, a B. Sophie, B. I stared at the letters. I'm type O. I'm not a geneticist, but I remembered enough high school biology to know that wasn't possible. O and I'll make O. That's just how it works. I Googled it to be sure, then Googled it again. A hollow thud rang in my chest, but I told myself there must be some mistake. I brought it up casually to Claire. Hey, weird thing. That school form lists Emily's blood as AB. That can't be right, right? She barely looked up from her laptop. Oh, I think they messed that up. You know how disorganized their nurse is. I'll fix it. And that was that. She didn't flinch, didn't stumble over her words. So I believed her. Another month passed. One evening, we were cleaning up the cafe after a busy Saturday. Emily, now in her final year of high school, was working part-time with me. She made the place feel alive, chatting with customers, stealing pastries from the counter. I stood behind her at the register, watching her laugh with an older couple who'd been regulars for years. She's got your kindness, one of them said as they left. I smiled. Yeah, she does. But something about her laugh, her mannerisms, I couldn't explain it. It hit me that she didn't resemble me at all. Not just physically. Plenty of kids don't, but not in the ways that matter. She was more reserved. Less like me, more like someone else. I hated myself for thinking that. The next morning, I found an old photo album Claire had put away years ago. Pictures of Emily and Sophie as toddlers, then babies. Claire had always been reluctant to talk about her pregnancies. She called them long blurs. I never thought to question it, but as I turned the pages, something gnawed at me. There were no photos of her pregnant, none of her in the hospital, just the babies, always a few weeks old already, swaddled in pink blankets. The unease didn't go away this time. It grew. I told myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking, that 20 years of happiness couldn't possibly be built on a lie. But now I was paying attention, and when you start really looking, the truth has a way of revealing itself. It came to a head one night in late spring. Emily had just come home from school. Claire was cooking in the kitchen, and Sophie was playing a game on the floor. I was reviewing tax documents from the accountant, prepping for quarterly reports. Most of it was routine stuff. But one envelope caught my eye. A letter from our old insurance provider, unopened and dated over a year ago. Inside was a DNA paternity test result. I didn't remember ever requesting one. It was addressed to Claire, from a private lab. I read it once, then twice. Probability of paternity, 0%. The paper slipped from my fingers. I stared blankly at the wall, unable to breathe. I didn't know which child it referred to. Maybe both. Claire came in a minute later, wiping her hands on a towel. Dinner's almost ready. You okay? I looked at her, truly looked at her, and for the first time in 2 decades, I didn't recognize the woman standing in front of me. I nodded slowly. Yeah, just tired. Because how do you ask the love of your life if she's been lying to you since the beginning? How do you tell your daughters, the light of your world, that everything they've known might be built on a lie? You don't. Not right away. You keep breathing, keep pretending, keep smiling, and you begin to uncover the truth one layer at a time. The days that followed Emily's offhand remark passed in a strange, heavy quiet. I didn't bring it up. Not yet. I told myself it was nothing, a slip of the tongue, something she didn't mean or couldn't have meant the way it sounded. But those words stayed lodged in my chest like a piece of broken glass I couldn't cough up. You're not even our real dad. I'd heard that phrase used by angry teenagers in movies, usually when they were trying to lash out. But Emily wasn't angry. She hadn't shouted it. It hadn't come with a door slam or a dramatic exit. It was casual, thoughtless, as if it were something she just assumed I knew. At night, I lay next to Sarah and watched the ceiling. I wanted to ask her to just come out and say it. But how do you form that sentence after 20 years of marriage? After 2 decades of fatherhood? Instead, I watched. I listened. I looked back through time, searching for cracks in a perfect life I had never questioned. The truth is, we were the kind of family other people envied. We went to every parent-teacher conference together. We had Sunday breakfast on the porch and homemade pizza nights every Friday. When the girls were little, I used to braid their hair in the mornings before school. Terribly at first, until YouTube tutorials saved me from their giggling judgment. We built blanket forts in the living room. We slow danced in the kitchen with socked feet, sliding on polished wood floors. I was a dad with glitter in his beard and scraped knees from park adventures. There had never been room in my mind for doubt. But now, I watched with new eyes. I noticed the way Sarah's smile sometimes didn't quite reach her eyes when she watched me with the girls. I remembered things she said in the early days, how grateful she was that I accepted everything so easily. Back then I thought she meant her past, her struggles, her debt from college. But now, did she mean the girls? I started pulling out old photos, studying them with clinical detachment. I never questioned how different Emily and Lily looked for me. They had Sarah's coloring, her cheekbones, her laugh. But now I stared longer, seeing things I didn't want to see. One night, after Sarah fell asleep, I got up and sat at the kitchen table in the dark. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. My heart beat in my throat. I opened my laptop and started searching. I didn't even know what I was looking for at first. I typed in phrases like, how to tell if you're the biological father, and at-home paternity tests. The results made my stomach twist. It felt wrong, disrespectful, like I was betraying the very family I'd built. But another voice inside me whispered, what if you've been living a lie? I ordered the test online the same night. It arrived in a plain envelope, tucked between a water bill and a coupon flyer. I took it to the garage and opened it like it was a bomb. Instructions, swabs, return packaging. I waited 3 days before using it. 3 days of looking at Lily laughing at TikToks and Emily cooking pasta with her headphones in. They were still my girls. That hadn't changed. But something inside me had. On the 4th night, I waited until everyone was asleep. I crept into their rooms like a thief, careful not to wake them, gently swabbing the inside of their cheeks. My hands were shaking. My eyes burned. I sealed the kit, drove it to the post office, and then I waited. 5 business days, the email said, but it felt like an eternity. On the 5th night, I sat outside with beer and stared at the sky. I thought about the hospital the day Emily was born, how small she was, how Sarah cried when I held her for the first time. I thought about the time Lily scraped her knee on a rock and ran into my arms sobbing, saying, "Daddy, fix it." I'd fixed everything. Always. Every broken toy, every bruised ego, every shattered teenage heart. What was I supposed to do if I couldn't fix this? The email came the next morning. Subject line: "Your results are ready." I clicked it with hands that didn't feel like mine. The page loaded, slowly, like it knew what was coming. Then one sentence: "Probability of paternity, 0%. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared. It was like watching a bridge collapse in slow motion. Metal twisting, bolts popping, concrete crumbling into the sea. Both tests, both daughters, 0%. Not a mistake. Speak to anyone not for a maybe. 2 days. Not mine. Not a word. I went through the motions like a machine, drove to the cafe, nodded at customers, flipped the open sign. Steamed milk for lattes I couldn't taste. But inside I was locked in a free fall. My world didn't shatter. It crumbled quietly, grain by grain, like sand slipping through fingers. Sarah didn't notice at first. She thought I was tired, maybe stressed. I'd built a habit over the years of hiding my emotions, being the calm one, the patient one, the steady ship. So when I fell silent, no alarm bells went off. But by the third evening, she sat across from me at dinner and frowned. "You okay?" I looked at my plate. Cold pasta, untouched, just tired, I murmured. She tilted her head slightly, the way she always did when trying to read me. "You've been off for days." I said I'm fine. I snapped. The words came out sharper than I intended. Her eyebrows rose slightly. All right. We ate in silence after that. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat in my office and stared at the closed laptop. I didn't open the test results again. I didn't need to. That single sentence was branded into my skull. I thought about confronting her, about demanding the truth, but something inside me hesitated. Maybe I wanted to hear it from her. Maybe I wanted to give her a chance to come clean. Maybe I was afraid of the look in her eyes when I told her I knew. I didn't know how long the secret had been sitting between us. But now that I saw it, it was everywhere. In the way she changed the subject when I brought up the girl's baby years. In the subtle flinch when I used to joke about them having my stubbornness. In her silence when I said how proud I was to see myself in them. I saw it all now. I just hadn't wanted to. I didn't sleep. I watched old home videos. Birthdays. School plays. Christmas mornings. Me, lifting Emily onto my shoulders. Lily clinging to my neck at the beach. Sarah, always smiling, always watching. But there was something behind her smile I'd never paid attention to before. Guilt, maybe. I called in sick the next morning. Stayed home while Sarah went to work, and the girls left for school. The house was too quiet. Every tick of the clock felt accusatory. Around noon, I poured a drink and sat at the kitchen table. And I called her. Sarah picked up on the second ring. "Hey, everything okay?" "Come home." A pause. "What's wrong?" "Please." She was home 20 minutes later. Her heels echoed sharply against the hardwood floor as she came in, dropping her bag. "You're scaring me." I looked at her. Really looked. She still looked like the woman I married. Same eyes. Same curve of her mouth. But now I saw the walls behind them, the hidden rooms where secrets lived. I took a test. I said. Her face changed. Subtly but unmistakably. "A test?" she asked carefully. "For the girls." Silence. Dead, heavy silence. She didn't deny it. She didn't pretend she didn't understand. Her face drained of color, and she sat down slowly across from me. "Oh," she whispered. That was it. Just how long have you known?" I asked, my voice hoarse. She swallowed hard. "Always." It hit me like a slap. "I was pregnant when we met," she continued, voice trembling. "Barely 2 weeks. I didn't know how to tell you. And then, you just loved them so much. From the start. So you lied." "I didn't mean to." She stopped herself. "I didn't plan it. I wasn't trying to trap you. I fell in love with you. And they were already inside me. And I was scared if I told you, I'd lose everything." You lied to me for 20 years. Tears welled in her eyes. They're your daughters. No, they're not. Not by blood, she whispered, but in every way that matters. No, I repeated. You don't get to say that. You don't get to take the truth and wrap it in a pretty bow just because it hurts less. She broke then, really broke. Her face crumpled and the tears came fast and hard. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I hated myself every day for not telling you. I wanted to 1,000 times. But then I'd look at you playing with them, and I couldn't. My chest felt like it was caving in. I wanted to scream, to throw something. But all I did was sit there and stare at the woman I thought I knew, the mother of the children I had raised as my own, the wife I had trusted with everything. I stood up. Where are you going? She asked, panicked. I don't know. Please, she begged. Please don't tell them. Not yet. Let me talk to them. Let me. I need air. And I walked out the door, unsure if I would ever come back. It started small. A missed school event. A vague response to a question. A glance that lasted just a second too long between her and someone else. But then again, after 20 years of life together, it was easy to brush those things off. We were busy. We were tired. We were parents, exhausted, devoted, distracted. But now, looking back, I wonder how many times the truth almost surfaced, and how many times I helped bury it again. It was late spring when the first real crack appeared. Our youngest, Mia, was working on a genetics project for her high school biology class. She needed both parents to participate. Just a simple saliva test, a fun, science-based assignment that dozens of families were doing. We laughed about it, actually. Sarah teased me, asking what secrets my genes might reveal. I joked that maybe I'd find out I was secretly descended from royalty. We both grinned as Mia swabbed our cheeks and carefully packed the sample kits. It was harmless, routine, a school project. A week passed, then another. I didn't think much about it until I came home one afternoon to find Sarah sitting on the couch, her laptop open, her expression tight. Not scared, not angry, just distant. I asked her what was wrong, but she shook her head. Nothing, just work stuff, she said. I'm fine. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something about her tone felt wrong, forced. I leaned in to kiss her cheek, and she turned away slightly. It was subtle. Maybe she didn't even realize she did it. But I did. The next day, I found Mia's project folder on the kitchen counter. I flipped it open absent-mindedly, scanning through the typed pages. Genetic traits and heredity. It was filled with charts, diagrams, and a breakdown of dominant and recessive genes. I barely understood most of it, but then I saw it. Blood type comparison. My blood type, Mia's, a B. I blinked. That couldn't be right. 2 O-type parents can't have an AB child. That was basic high school science. I even Googled it, just to be sure. Same answer, no matter where I looked. I told myself it was a mistake. A typo. A school project, not a real test. But something inside me, some deep, primal instinct, refused to let it go. I waited until everyone was asleep that night and pulled out the test kits we kept in a drawer for emergencies. I swabbed my cheek, then Mia's, then Lily's. I sent them off privately, paying extra for expedited results. The email came 3 days later. I opened it alone in the garage. I remember the way the rain tapped against the windows, soft and steady, like the ticking of a clock counting down to something inevitable. Mia, no biological relation. Lily, no biological relation. I read the words over and over again. I closed the laptop, opened it again. Still there. Still impossible. Still real. I don't know how long I sat there. Hours maybe. I thought about the sleepless nights holding them as babies. Their first words. First steps. Bandaging scraped knees. Cheering from the bleachers. Birthday parties. Bedtime stories. Hair braids and math homework. How could none of that be real? But it was real. I knew it was. No DNA test could erase what we had. What I gave. What I sacrificed. I raised those girls. I loved them with everything I had, and no lab result could change that. Still, questions tore through my mind like wildfire. Was Sarah ever going to tell me? Was it one man? Multiple? Did she know all along? I couldn't confront her yet. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. Not until I was sure. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a scream. I lay next to her, next to the woman I had loved for over 2 decades, and felt like a stranger had crawled into my bed. She shifted in her sleep, mumbled something incoherent, and pulled the blanket tighter over her shoulders. I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts like storm clouds, swirling faster, darker. The DNA report lay folded in my drawer, as if hiding away could make it less real. 2 daughters, 20 years. Not mine. The house was quiet, but it wasn't peace. It was suffocating. Every photo on the wall mocked me now. Birthday parties, beach trips, our wedding day. The framed one in the hallway where we all wore matching sweaters. It used to make me smile. Now I couldn't even look at it. I got up before dawn and went downstairs. The kitchen smelled like coffee and old memories. The girls would be waking up in an hour, getting ready for school like nothing had changed. Because for them, it hadn't. For them, I was still Dad. That word used to mean something. Now it felt borrowed. She walked in eventually, barefoot and quiet. Her eyes were tired, but her smile was automatic until she saw my face. Then she froze. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. I didn't answer. "You're still angry." Still? No. Anger was the easy part. Anger was clean, sharp. What I felt now was something Messier. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, staring at my untouched coffee. Why let me live a lie? She sat down across from me. Because it wasn't a lie to me, I looked up sharply. I never planned it. It wasn't some scheme. I was young, confused, and scared. And then I met you, and you saved me from everything. You made it better. By hiding it from me? Her eyes welled up, but I couldn't care. Not now. You gave me the life I never thought I'd have, she whispered. And you gave them the best father they could have asked for. But I'm not their father, I said, my voice cold. She flinched like I'd hit her. I stood and left the kitchen. I couldn't look at her any longer. I needed answers. Real ones. That day, I took a drive I hadn't planned. Not to work. Not to clear my head. I drove to the town where she used to live before we met. Small place. Familiar streets. I remember visiting once early in our relationship, but back then, I didn't ask too many questions. Why would I? Now, every forgotten detail burned. I started with city records, birth certificates. The girls were registered under my name. But that didn't mean much now, did it? I visited the local hospital, asked for old records. They couldn't give me anything specific, but it started forming a picture. Back then, she'd been involved with someone, briefly, apparently. I tracked down an old neighbor who remembered her, an older woman with kind eyes. Yes, she was seeing someone before she moved away, she said. Tall guy, rough around the edges. Never met him myself, but she'd always come back crying when they fought. Then one day she just vanished. She'd never told me any of this. I thanked the woman, left a 10 on her porch table, and walked away with a bitter taste in my mouth. There was a name on one of the old forms, a doctor's note, a last name that wasn't mine. I dug deeper. 2 hours of searching led me to a man living a few towns over. No phone number, no social media, just an address. I parked across the street and stared at the house for a long time. It wasn't much. Paint peeling, overgrown lawn, rusted car out front. A man came out to smoke. Mid-40s, long hair, slouched shoulders. Something in my chest tightened. Could that be him? Could that be the man who gave my daughters half their DNA and nothing else? I didn't get out. I just sat there, watching him. He had no idea. No idea that the best parts of his life had happened without him. Eventually, he went back inside. I started the car. That night, when I came home, the girls were in the living room watching some sitcom, laughing. The sound felt both comforting and cruel. I stood there watching them, a lump in my throat. They weren't mine, but they were mine. They called me Dad their entire lives. They cried in my arms, rode on my shoulders, brought me macaroni art, hugged me after nightmares, told me they loved me before school every morning. I couldn't walk away from that. I wouldn't. But I also couldn't pretend nothing had changed. Later, when the house went quiet, she came to my study. "Where were you today?" she asked gently. I didn't look up. Finding out who I am. She stepped closer. "And did you?" I'm still trying to figure it out. She sat down across from me. "They don't know. I won't tell them. Not yet. Maybe not ever." She nodded slowly. "Thank you." I finally looked at her. "But you need to tell me everything. No more secrets. No more edited stories." She exhaled, defeated. "Okay." And so she did. For the next 2 hours, she told me everything. How scared she was. How alone. How she met him. How things fell apart. How she found out she was pregnant and didn't know what to do. And then how she met me. "I chose you," she said. "I chose this life. And every day since, I've tried to be worthy of it." I said nothing. I didn't forgive her. I didn't sleep
Not
much
yet.
that night. Maybe not
I
ever.
lay there staring
But I
at the
listened,
ceiling,
and that
the
was
soft
the ticking of the hallway clock louder than it had ever been. My mind kept circling back to their faces. Emma and Lily. Those two girls who used to rush into my arms the moment I walked through the door, their giggles echoing through the house like music, their drawings still pinned to the refrigerator. One said, "Best dad ever." I hadn't had the heart to take it down. But now everything had changed. The test was real. The results were undeniable. I wasn't their biological father. Yet every memory told me otherwise. I remembered braiding Emma's hair before school because Michelle always said I had the steadiest hands. I remembered staying up all night building Lily's dollhouse, trying to make sure the tiny lights worked just like in the pictures. I remembered flu seasons and ballet recitals, scrapes on knees and bedtime stories told 1,000 times. I remembered love, freely given, without doubt or hesitation. Was that all meaningless now? I sat at the kitchen table the next morning, barely touching my coffee. Michelle was in the bedroom with the door closed. We hadn't spoken since the night before. What was there left to say? She tried to explain, tried to apologize, but nothing she said made the weight lift from my chest. She said it happened before we were even married, that she thought it was over, that she never intended for this to stay buried forever. But it had stayed buried. For 2 decades, the sound of footsteps broke the silence. Emma stood in the hallway, still in her pajamas, her hair a mess of curls and confusion. "Dad," she asked, blinking at me. "Why are you up so early?" "Dad." That word hit like a hammer now. "I just couldn't sleep," I said, forcing a smile. "Go get ready. I'll drive you to class today." She nodded slowly, sensing the tension, but not yet knowing its shape. I watched her walk off and felt a wave of nausea. She didn't deserve this. Neither of them did. The car ride was quiet. Lily hummed to herself in the back seat. Emma scrolled through her phone. No one spoke much. Maybe they felt something too, something unsaid. When I dropped them off, I just sat there for a moment after the doors shut, watching them disappear into their day like nothing had changed. But everything had. Back home, Michelle was in the kitchen. She looked smaller now, like a version of herself stripped down by guilt. She didn't look at me when she spoke. I told them you were just tired. "Thanks," I replied flatly. She finally looked up. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't know what to do." I wanted to yell, to scream, to ask her how she could look me in the eye for 20 years knowing the truth, but the words didn't come. Instead, I sat across from her, and for a long time we said nothing. That night, I found myself in the garage, digging through old boxes, photos, school art projects, letters from summer camps, Father's Day cards with misspelled words and crooked hearts, my name in shaky handwriting. To Dad. I wasn't trying to torture myself. I was trying to remember what was real, because despite the biology, despite the betrayal, I had been their father in every way that mattered, and I still was. But what did that mean now? Would they see me differently if they found out? Would they question everything we had shared? Would they love me less? Would they walk away? I couldn't bear the thought. So I made a decision. For now, I wouldn't tell them. Not yet. They deserved better than the storm waiting behind that truth. They deserved peace while I figured out how to protect them from it. Michelle tried again before bed. She came to me quietly, her voice breaking, her hand reaching for mine. I never wanted this, she whispered. You were always their father. You are. But that wasn't her choice to make. And it wasn't something I could accept. Not yet. I slept in the guest room that night, staring at the ceiling once again, listening to the silence in the walls. I didn't know what the next day would bring, but I knew one thing. Whatever happened, I would always be their father, even if the world said otherwise. The days that followed passed like slow, aching waves. Not quite pain, but never peace either. I threw myself into routines, work, errands, fixing up small things around the house that didn't need fixing. Anything to avoid the stillness. Anything to keep from thinking too long or too hard. The girls were their usual selves, bouncing in and out of the house with stories from school, requests for rides, jokes over dinner. And I played my part, smiling, nodding, pretending. Pretending I wasn't a man unraveling from the inside out. Michelle tried to talk to me at night. She started sitting beside me on the couch, her hands folded neatly in her lap, as if she were waiting for a verdict. I never gave one. I didn't know how. What do you say to someone who built 20 years of your life on a silent lie? She kept saying she didn't mean for it to happen this way. But meaning didn't undo reality. One evening, I found myself sitting alone on the back porch. The sky was that kind of dusky orange that only lasts for 10 minutes. The air smelled like dry leaves and gasoline from someone's mower. I sipped from a glass of whiskey, letting it sting my throat, and stared out at the backyard. This was where I taught Emma to ride a bike, where Lily ran through the sprinklers in her mismatched swimsuit, where we used to set up the tent for family camping nights, with flashlights and marshmallows and ghost stories that never scared anyone. This was home, but it felt foreign now, like I was walking through someone else's memories. The door creaked open behind me. Michelle stepped out, silent at first. I'm not asking for another chance, she said quietly. I'm just asking you not to walk away from them. I didn't turn around. I'm not the one who left. You did, 20 years ago. She sat down on the steps beside me, wrapped in one of my old sweatshirts. You're right. It wasn't an argument, just a fact. We sat like that for a long time. I don't know how to fix this, she finally whispered. I don't think you can, I said. She nodded slowly, biting her lip. But you still love them. Yes, I said. That's the part that hurts most. She left me alone after that, and I stayed on the porch long after the sky had gone dark. The next day, I got a call from Lily's school. She had a science fair project due the next morning and had completely forgotten about it. Classic Lily. I picked her up from her friend's place, and we made a last-minute dash to the craft store. Dad, she said as we walked through the aisles, do you think a volcano is too basic? Volcanoes are a classic, I said. Besides, we've got baking soda and vinegar home. It's a winner. She grinned. You always know what to do. That sentence hit me harder than it should have. She didn't know what she was saying, but I did. Back home, we spent 2 hours building the ugliest volcano I'd ever seen. It wobbled. The paint job was awful. The lava barely fizzed. But she was proud of it, and she was proud of me. That night, after she went to bed, I sat in the kitchen and stared at the half-empty bottle of wine on the counter. I could keep lying. I could hold this secret until the day I died. Or I could tell the truth and risk tearing down everything I'd ever built. The question wasn't what was right. The question was what would hurt less. The door opened behind me. This time it wasn't Michelle. It was Emma. She stood there barefoot, holding her phone, her face pale. I saw a message, she said, on Mom's phone, about a test. I froze. What test? She asked, her voice small. I didn't answer. Her lip trembled. Are you not my dad? I stood up slowly, my heart thudding in my chest. Emma, sit down. She didn't. You are my father, she said, more to herself than to me. You raised me. You held my hand at the doctor. You taught me how to drive. I nodded, eyes burning. Yes. But biology, she whispered. I swallowed hard. Biology doesn't change what we have. Not for me. She stared at me for a long time, then stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. Tight, fierce, like she was holding on to something that was slipping. I don't care, she said into my chest. You're still my dad. And just like that, the dam broke. For the first time since this nightmare began, the next morning I felt different. Really lighter, cried. Somehow, and I didn't cry alone. As if saying the truth out loud had taken something heavy off my shoulders, even if it still sat heavy in the room. Emma acted like nothing had changed. She made herself cereal, joked about her awful volcano getting a participation ribbon, and asked if I could drive her to school. I agreed, but something in her eyes, some quiet depth, told me she hadn't forgotten anything. She'd just decided not to let it break us. Lily was still in the dark, and for now, I wanted it to stay that way. Michelle, on the other hand, walked around like a shadow. She didn't speak much, just cleaned a little too much. Folded things that didn't need folding. Cooked meals she barely touched. I didn't ask how she was doing. I wasn't sure I cared. That night, after everyone was asleep, I went into the garage and dug out the old box with our wedding photos. Dusty, untouched for years. I flipped through them slowly. Her in that white dress, me in a too-tight suit, laughing like we didn't have a clue what life would throw at us. And maybe we didn't. Maybe we just believed too hard in the fantasy of it all. At the bottom of the box was a video cassette, our wedding ceremony, recorded by her cousin on a camcorder. I didn't have the heart to watch it. I set it aside and pulled out a photo of Emma, barely 5, standing on a beach in a pink sun hat, one tooth missing from her wide smile. I remember that trip, the way she screamed at the waves, how I carried her for hours when her legs got tired. She clung to my neck like I was her whole world. Maybe I was, and maybe that was all that mattered. The next few days passed with a quiet, kind of normal. The girls went to school. I managed the cafe. Michelle stayed out my way. We spoke only when needed. I still hadn't told Lily. I didn't know how. How do you look a child in the eyes and tell her the man she called Dad wasn't the one who gave her life? But maybe it didn't matter, because life isn't just blood and DNA. It's Band-Aids and bedtime stories. It's sitting in waiting rooms and clapping at school plays and fixing broken shoelaces on the way out the door. And I'd done all of that. I still was. One night, while I was locking up the cafe, a man I didn't recognize came in just before closing. Coffee to go? I asked. He looked around slowly. You're Carter, right? I nodded, cautious. You know me? He smiled in a way that didn't reach his eyes. I know the girls. My heart stopped. Who are you? I'm nobody, he said. Just someone who made a mistake a long time ago. Or maybe your wife did. Depends how you look at it. I didn't respond. I just wanted to see them. One last time. I stepped out from behind the counter. You don't get to do that. You gave up that right. He shrugged. That's fair. There was silence. Heavy, thick. Then he pulled a small envelope from his jacket and placed it on the counter. This isn't hush money. It's not guilt. It's just a thank you for being the man I never was. He turned to leave. What's your name? I asked. He paused at the door. Does it matter? Then he was gone. I stared at the envelope for a long time before finally opening it. Inside were 5 $100 bills and a note that simply said, "You saved them from me. I hope you know what that means." I threw the money into the trash because I already knew what it meant. They weren't his daughters. They were mine. 6 months had passed. The house was quieter now. The kind of quiet that doesn't ache anymore, just settles in like an old blanket. Emma had started high school and joined the art club. Lily was obsessed with soccer and always left her cleats in the hallway no matter how many times I told her not to. Michelle had moved out 3 months ago. No big fights, no screaming. Just a long, late-night conversation in the living room. The two of us sitting on opposite ends of the couch like strangers waiting for a delayed train. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she'd said, not meeting my eyes. I don't hate you, I replied, but I can't love you anymore either. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. I never meant to ruin everything. I know. And that was it. She left the next morning with 2 suitcases and a box of old photo albums. I let her hug the girls, and I didn't interfere. They still saw her on weekends. I never said a bad word about her to them. I didn't need to. Time would do the explaining. Life moved on. The cafe became my anchor. I hired 2 new baristas and added a weekend live music night. Business was good. The regulars started noticing a shift in me. Lighter, maybe even a bit more alive. I'd begun to smile again. One Friday afternoon, I came home early. The girls were in the backyard. Emma sketching under the tree. Lily chasing the dog in circles. Both of them laughing like the world had never betrayed them. I stood by the window and just watched. Noticed the little things. How Lily always tilted her head when she laughed. How Emma bit her pencil when she was deep in thought. They were mine. Not because of biology. Not because of some document or last name. But because I stayed. I showed up. And I never stopped being their father. That night, we made homemade pizza. Burnt the crust. Forgot the pepperoni. But laughed through the whole mess. Later, I tucked them in. Lily first. Then Emma, who pretended not to like it anymore, but secretly still did. As I turned off the light, she whispered, "Dad?" "Yeah. Thanks for being you." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Wouldn't want to be anyone else. She smiled and turned over, pulling the blanket to her chin. Downstairs, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at the table. The house was quiet again, but this time it was full of peace. I took out a notebook and wrote one line at the top of a blank page. Sometimes, the people we choose mean more than the ones we inherit. I closed the notebook, and just like that, the story was complete.